Hey guys, happy Monday and welcome to this next iced coffee date. And I'm trying something a little bit different today. I'm actually in my office versus my kitchen. And this is for a couple of reasons. One, because it's not morning, it's actually afternoon. I just had a busy morning, getting myself ready, getting Quinn ready for school. So I just didn't have time to do one today. And I like to do them in the beginning of the week. So when I turn it into a podcast episode, you can watch it later on. Also, I don't have an iced coffee. I have like the remnants of a coffee on my desk, but I don't have a fresh iced coffee, and I wasn't planning to have another iced coffee this afternoon. So I was like, you know what, I'll just do it in my office. Also, I wanted to see if the sound would be better in here. So we'll see how it goes. But today I'm going to talk about consistency and how to get consistent. This is something I talk about with one-on-one clients. I talk about it with the ladies in the mentorship, talk about it with the ladies in the lifestyle group. So it's definitely a topic of conversation for sure. And so with this episode, I'm hoping I can give you some really actionable, tangible advice, things you can actually do to help you be more consistent. And as far as consistency goes, I really do think it's like the number one thing that, not that we ignore it, but I think we put so much focus on other things like the macros and the exercising and drinking enough water, and all those things are important. But at the end of the day, I just think consistency really is the most important for progress. And I also talk to different ladies I work with, and I'm always telling them, what is the rush? Like, why do we have to do this right now? Why can't we make this part of our lifestyle? Why can't we create habits around this? Because at the end of the day, that's really what is going to get you the progress and the results that you want. And I really do think like this is what matters, is this idea of consistency, because at the end of the day, you want your habits to become your lifestyle so you can like stop obsessing about what you're doing and just live your life. Like these things just become part of what you do every day. And then you can just live a happy, healthy life and not, stress about hitting your macros and getting in enough steps and like all the things that we associate with fat loss and being healthy. So at the end of the day, I say this to my clients as well. I can't make you do anything. You have to do things for yourself. So when I'm talking about how to get consistent, I really hope you take this to heart and really consider what you are doing or not doing and how you can be consistent, because I really think that this is the missing piece for a lot of people, is that they're consistent for like a week or two and then they get upset that nothing's happening and then they quit. And it goes back to that idea that you're not focusing on the process, you're focusing on the outcome. So then consistency goes out the window and you don't get results. So I think looking at like the bigger picture as far as consistency goes. So instead of looking at consistency from day to day, looking at consistency week by week, month by month, I think that's really when you'll get the best results. And as far as like diets go, they all work. I mean, I've talked about this before, but like you could be on a paleo diet, a keto diet, Whole30. I mean, there's a million diets out there. But the thing with them is that they work until they don't work, and they don't really allow for consistency. And again, I think that's where we get tripped up, because we can't do these things for a consistent amount of time. So the goal is to create consistency with the least amount of resistance. And I was talking to Mal about this, like I was talking this all out as I was planning it, and I have some notes and everything here. But I was saying, how do you make your habits and your lifestyle consistent without resistance? Like almost rhymes, right? But I just think about like an example is, I was actually talking to a client about this too, is that with like Whole30. I have so many clients come to me, they talk about how great Whole30 is, how they've gotten great results, their skin has cleared up, their hormones have gotten better, they've lost weight. There's so many great things about Whole30, but people only do it for 30 days. And that's it. Like you can be consistent for 30 days, but what happens on day 31? You really have to like rely on like discipline and willpower. So it's how do you make what you're doing with Whole30 easier for the long run? Because if you think about how much restriction is in that diet, like you can't have alcohol, you can't have dairy, you can't have white potatoes, you can't have sugar. And sure, you could do that for 30 days, but it doesn't fit into your lifestyle. I mean, I just think about celebrations and vacation and dining out and holidays and all that. It's just hard to fit that into your lifestyle. So how do you make these things easier once you hit day 31? Like what do you do then? So I think the number one thing for consistency, and I have my one-on-one clients do this, my mentorship ladies do this, is tracking your consistency. And I know this sounds so simple, and again, like I think it's something that we overlook. I really think like our perception and our reality are very, very different. So like having you be aware of your consistency, I think is really important for that behavior change, getting the results that you want, because sometimes we pay attention to some things and ignore others. And I think about like consistency, you know, we think about the things that we're doing, but then when we're not consistent, we kind of just ignore it, or we blow it off, or we don't think it's like a big deal. So instead of like leaving this all up to chance, like really tracking your consistency. And if you think about it, we track our weight, we track the number on the scale, we track our measurements, we track how our clothes fit, we track all these things, but we don't track consistency. And if you think about it, consistency is more in our control than what happens on the scale or what happens with our measurements. So why is it something that we overlook? And so when I'm talking about consistency, I'm talking about making sure you're getting, 7 hours of sleep, making sure you're actively managing stress, making sure you're drinking enough water, making sure you're eating whole foods most of the time, getting daily movements, getting enough protein, getting enough fiber in your diet. I mean, really, you could pick a handful of things that you want to keep track of, or things that you think are most important to your progress that you would do really well. But really, like, break out a calendar and write these things down and then just check them off your list every day. My one-on-one clients, they literally have a form that they fill out every week where they get to rate themselves on how they are doing with that. And then same thing with my mentorship ladies. They are paying attention to these habits and to their consistency. Because if you don't have any sort of metrics, it's really hard to know if you're consistent or not. It's such like a vague thing, like, were you consistent this week? But if you can actually track it and have that data, you can actually be consistent or not. Because, if you're going through the week and you're having consistent days, day after day, that's all great. But if there's one day that you're not consistent, looking at the big picture, helps you realize that, you weren't a failure that week, Because I think a lot of us put a lot of stock in, one day of being off, or, the weekend where you go off track. But then if you look at the whole week, you're probably actually pretty consistent. Of course, if you're seeing, inconsistent days for most of the week, that's a pretty different conversation to have with yourself. But again, it goes back to awareness and being honest with yourself. But I really do think paying attention to your consistency can make the biggest difference ever. And then you really do have an answer if you were being consistent or not. So I think slowing down, taking the time to track this every single day can be helpful in the sense that it helps you be aware, but it's also kind of nice because you get to check things off your list, and it's almost like a dopamine hit every time you complete these things for the day. But again, it's showing you that you are consistent or not consistent, and really awareness is an amazing thing when it comes to your habits and what you're doing and not you're doing. And then of course, if you are feeling resistant and you aren't consistent on the regular, how can you change that? How can you make things easier? How can you make things part of your lifestyle? I think that's really, really important. And then say you're not meal prepping, or you're not getting enough protein. How do you fix those things? How do you make it easier to meal prep? How do you make it easier to get enough protein in your diet? And for a lot of clients, it's, getting groceries in the house. So maybe you have them delivered, or you ask your partner to grab things on the way home. Especially for protein, I feel a lot of times you do need to meal prep it or prepare it ahead of time. So purchase the already cooked meat, or purchase the vegetables that are already cut up. Make it easier for yourself, because then you're more likely to stick to your habits. And again, this being part of your routine and what you normally do, that's when the habits come into play. That's when you get consistent. And, if you're not, figuring out how to make it easier. So thinking of some of those things, even working out, if you're not getting workouts in on the regular, can you wake up 30 minutes earlier and get a quick little HIIT workout in? Can you do something on your on your lunch break? Can you be more of a weekend warrior and get 2 good quality workouts in on the weekend instead of during the week because your schedule is too busy? It doesn't need to be perfect, but I really do think focusing on your habits and how they fit into your lifestyle. Like, you want to keep doing these things consistently until they are second nature to you. And then back to this idea of perfection, and this is what I see all the time with clients, is they get so down on themselves, like a weekend off track or a few days off track, like they get so bummed out. They're like, oh, I wasn't able to control myself. I'm like a horrible person. I have no willpower. I'll never get to my goals. I can't believe I did that. I've heard all these things from women. And this is usually based on one day or 2 days or a long weekend or whatever it is. And the thing with tracking your consistency, it can show you that 1 day or 2 days really isn't messing up your progress. Because when you're looking at the big picture, like the weeks, the months, the years, like how consistent are you or not? Again, it goes back to awareness, but don't get caught up in the day to day. I had this example with a client the other day where she was tracking her weight and she saw her weight go up like 4 pounds or something like that. But then over the course of the week, her weight was actually down 2 pounds.